Welcome to this week's CybHER conversation brought to you by Peraton. My name is Janessa Palmieri, and on behalf of Peraton, we are proud to partner with CybHER to bring you these weekly conversations. For those of you who are joining us today for the first time, CybHER is a program out of Dakota State University in Madison, South Dakota that works to motivate, empower, and educate young women in cybersecurity. Just a reminder, at any point during the program, you can ask a question via the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. I am very honored to introduce today's speaker, Carolyn Crandall. Carolyn is the Cheif Security Advocate at Attivo Networks, the leader in preventing identity, privilege escalation, and detection in lateral movement attacks. Carolyn, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here.
Carolyn, you can go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, it's a great opportunity to be here and have a chance to talk with everybody. I love this topic and this opportunity to talk about Go Girl Power, right? You know, we can do anything in this world that we set our minds out to do. And it's been challenging, I'll admit it. Over the 30 years of my career, I have definitely seen shifts in attitude and thinking. And I think that the opportunities present themselves at a much greater level than they did, you know, even 30 years ago. You know, it's just great to have a chance to say, just because you may not look like or act like some of the folks that have been in this path before, change it, right? Make it a more welcoming and warm community for more women to come in. And that's what I'd love to talk about today, is just see what kind of questions you all have about, you know, getting into this business and career, and you know, make it easy, help pave the way, and happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn and help you out. You know, that's how we get where we are, is we make friends and we network and we help drive each other forward, and you know, lend a hand to each other. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things in the network that I've seen that's different between men and women in this area is that men have networks and they're used to it, whether it's from the golf games that they would play together or the beers they would have after work, where women tend to be very busy, you know, and doing things that we sometimes don't socialize in that same way. So when it comes to being comfortable to pick up the phone and say, you know, hey, it's my golf buddy or my drinking buddy, can you help me go get that job or get that interview or make that connection? They've tended to just be more comfortable in that. And I'd encourage you to make your networks and don't be afraid to ask for help and to help others, because, you know, when you pay it forward, it does come back around. I mean, I have notes from people from like 25, 30 years ago about how I helped them, and I didn't even realize I did it. But it was so powerful to them that even if you don't think it's going to be noticed, it will. So I encourage you to reach out and do those things. So I don't know where we want to start with things. So maybe you guys can give me some direction on what area you might want me to jump into. I'd be happy to go from there.
Yeah, Carolyn, I think you could start with how you got into cybersecurity and kind of what your role is at Attivo now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into cybersecurity kind of a bit through company acquisition the first time that I got introduced to it. I was very early in the high-tech industry. I started you know, working at companies when it was still a lot more about the semiconductors, and networking was just starting to come into vogue, and people were more interested in not having to carry pieces of paper from desk to desk and get networked connections. So that old sneaker net would go away. And it's even amazing to me now that we still struggle with cybersecurity concepts. And it's becoming more prevalent. And I love what's happening with the government today, and that they're taking an interest in saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, this attacks that are on our cyber infrastructure are as severe as blowing something up, right? Because you are disrupting oil and gas, food, agriculture, human safety. When you attack medical institutions or hospitals, it's got to be treated seriously. So I love the attention here. I've been watching it since, oh my gosh, when I first started at Cisco, I guess it was probably mid 90s. It's like some people are like, I wasn't born yet, but but it's been amazing to see how it's evolved from just putting a firewall at the front door to being something that you need layers of defense. And Attivo, the company that I work for, is a little different than most companies in that we're not worried about the front door being closed, right? So lots of vendors will make sure that happens, but it's more the eyes and ears inside of the network. And as I was listening to the description, I'm like, oh, we really have a technical description of our company. But what that really means is that once an attacker comes in, that we look and detect their activity. So it's called moving laterally. So if an attacker just infects your system, well, maybe if you're the CEO or the CFO, it's going to really matter, maybe a key engineer. But for most people, it's about jumping from that person's computer over into the network to more important things. And that's called lateral movement or privilege escalation. And it all starts with that credential theft and kind of moves out from there. And so Attivo is a company that looks for that attack activity and detects it, gives visibility to where there's exposures so that the attacker cannot gain the privileges or get control of the systems so that they can change policies, download all that malware for a nice ransomware attack, or lock security teams out so they can delete backups and make changes. So even if the security team does discover them, they don't have passwords. The attackers have changed their passwords, and so they can't get back in. And so, so that's what Attivo does as a company. I've been doing this for about 6 years with the company. Company started with a deception, cyber deception as its heritage and flagship products, which is super cool. Nothing more fun than tricking the bad guys into making mistakes. And it's really interesting too, because there's so many different types of cyber. And I love this because I love the idea of the trickery. And being able to trick and dupe attackers into thinking they're engaging with real stuff, but it's all fake. And then the company has kind of progressed going, okay, let's now look at how identities are being abused and bring forward some products around identity security and control. So that's kind of me. I spend probably half of my day doing updates to analysts, talking to the press, working on different elements between our engineering and PM about how we launch and position products. And then we were just working on some stuff for some of the government legislation. I got some calls with NIST and MITRE and these other agencies, which, we have a really neat opportunity here to change the way that that security is looked at as a government from a compliance and framework standpoint. And so do all of that. And then I also run the marketing team at Attivo too. And the reason why I share all of this is cybersecurity isn't a one size fits all, right? There are people that like to code and are really good at it. I started there. I was not very good at it. And I realized that I wasn't a great coder, but I loved technology. And as I looked at it, I said, there needs to be somebody that communicates between the most technical of things and the product has to get sold, right? And the problem has to be understood. So I loved kind of sitting in the middle between those two things and being technical enough to translate, but also kind of more conversational, more people kind of feeling my words-ish kind of a person, to be able to say, I can now humanize that and make it so the world at large can understand and appreciate what's going on. So that's kind of where I've come from, how I spend my days. I've worked for very big companies. Most of the time I'll look for startup, which is something else to think about as you think about your careers. Do you want to work for a big company? Lots of structure, lots of programs, lots of lanes already paved to go through, or do you want to go into more of a startup where, yeah, you're lucky if there's anything on that white piece of paper, right? You're drawing the lines yourself, you're kind of erasing them because sometimes they're not quite right, and you're figuring it out as you go, and you'll have broader responsibility, but it's not always for the faint-hearted, because you tend to work more hours and less things are directed, and you kind of have to be that starter yourself to go, hey, I think there's an opportunity over here, or what if we just do this a little different than everybody else? So you kind of have to know yourself a little bit too. Well, what do you like? Do you like structure, or do you like chaos. And if you like chaos, startups are a really fun place to go to. And then business, right? Business is starved for cyber knowledge and technology. And there's a lot of programs that are there to help women get introduced into these businesses and help teach them up so that you can, take on those more senior roles as you continue to grow. So I feel like I'm talking nonstop. So, so would you guys like me to take the conversation deeper or a different direction at this point? Kind of let me know if there's questions from the audience. Please jump in and let me know what you're most interested. I'm happy to share anything I know or anything I can do to help you out.
Carolyn, you can talk about anything you wish to. You can go deeper and talk about your career, or you can. It's totally up to you.
It's totally up to me.
Guest.
Oh my gosh, I've got this big soapbox to. So let's talk about the journeys, like from going into cybersecurity. There are different programs, and like anything in college or university, you're going to get some staple knowledge about everything, but there's nothing like getting hands-on at companies. And so I would say, volunteer to do internships, volunteer to do part-time projects. I know for us, especially during the pandemic, it was a lot harder, right? So it was, first thing, we had a college program that we would do every year, and we would bring on a couple, 2-3 new people each year. And then all of a sudden everything got distributed, and we kind of stopped for a bit, and we said, oh gosh, how do we onboard these people where they're not kind of shadowing me and other members of the team to figure out how to learn? And what I tell you, what has stood out, and we just actually hired somebody on Monday to work on the team, because she was aggressive. She went in and she said, look, this is what I can do for you. She reached out, kind of not just us to start, but on one of the switchboards and our newsroom sites, that I'm not sure what it's called here, but reached out and said, this is what I can do for the companies. And then we kind of had an exploratory conversation, and that's something else you can offer up. It's like, hey, let me just have an exploratory conversation with you about, if you did have the ability to bring on somebody, what would that look like? And then you can have a chance to banter and say, well, I think I could do this for you. Like, maybe I don't know everything you're doing, but I could help you with some of the analysis, or some of the reporting, or some of the research and information collection, and just making an offer to get started. And that helps. And a lot of companies are really confused right now, because they're like, gosh, how do I bring on new talent when they can't shadow me? And so if you can find a bit of a beachhead to come in and just say, well, I can do this for you. And it doesn't have to be a lot. I'll just do 10 hours a week if it's hard to get started. But get in, get them to know you, get them to know your willingness to work and your ambition and what you can contribute. And before you know it, companies are always hungry. Like, we're always starved to get new talent and people to take on projects, and you can bring yourself in that way. The other thing that I'll say too is you're interviewing for these jobs, the chances of you checking every box on that job skills requirement is probably not going to be there. So don't be overly conservative, because you can go in and say, hey, look, I can check 7 out of the 10 boxes, maybe only 6 out of the 10 boxes. But don't be afraid to go in and say how well you check the 6 that you do, and what you'll do to learn the other 4, right? There's a ton of information that's out there in classes and other things you can take. Show them that you've got the ambition to go do that. My very first job in high tech, I came in 5 times. And 5th interview, they were like, why do you keep coming in? You're really not qualified for the job. And my response is, why do you keep calling me? Like, if you're not going to hire me, stop calling me and I'll stop coming in. But they took a chance. Now, I didn't get the job I originally applied for, but they made another job for me, which was kind of how I got into high tech. Was I was actually selling shoes, and selling women's shoes is not a fun job, let me tell you. And so I wanted to do anything but that. So I applied for a job at a high tech company. And so that's kind of more by accident than by design that I ended up in high tech, even though I was going to school for electrical engineering, computer science. It was more just that path kind of took me one direction, and I went from there. So I guess my message is behind all of that is help people understand where you can fit, and don't be afraid to apply for jobs that are what you might feel is a little bit beyond your reach, but play to your strengths, and then have a plan to answer the question of, well, if you don't have those strengths, what are you going to do to go get them? All right, I see a couple. What are you looking for in new hires? So you're obviously coming in without experience. So I'm not going to be like, hey, have you done this before? If you have done some of it before, again, either on your college network or working, somewhere even part-time, that all helps. But I'm really looking for people that are confident in themselves, that they're not going to get intimidated by the environment, because this is a startup. So I kind of shared before that it's a little bit of chaos, and things happen very fast as you go to launch. Not that you don't know that the launch is coming, but it's just all the pieces coming together at the end tend to come together quickly. And it's somebody that's not going to get frazzled by that, and knows kind of when to watch and listen, but also is not afraid to jump in if they have an idea or a suggestion, or somebody that's willing to volunteer and say, hey, I know I've got my set of responsibilities over here, but I'd like to go be involved in this launch or this project or this activity, or even just to shadow. Can I just watch the email chains go by? Can I get a copy of the report? Can I sit in on the readout? So I'm looking for somebody that is ready to jump in and to learn, because to me, the college hires are betting on the athlete, right? I know you don't know the experience, but are you willing to go in and learn? And are you not going to get discouraged easily because you're going to fail, right? You're going to make mistakes. And if somebody gets very upset about failing, then that can be hard, because that dynamic can disrupt other members of the team. But somebody that can learn from it and go, okay, and I kind of crack up. I have a younger person on the team now, and she has this, she goes, understood. and it's her way of kind of acknowledging, going, okay, understood. I need to know how to do that, and I've got it, and I've got it better. And it's never like negative or anything like that. It's just kind of like, okay, you tried it this way. Next time when you do it, this might be a way to get a better result. And that's kind of my way of knowing from her that she's like, understood. I got it. I know what to do next time, and the next time I let her go do. And that's something for you to look for in the hiring manager. What environment are you going to be in? Are you ever going to get to go to bat? Right. And sometimes in bigger companies, you won't get the at bat, but you'll learn a lot by listening and watching and being a part of a team. Where if you're like, no, I'm ready to go to bat, like, I'm fast learner, I'm ready, I'm confident. And then startups might be a really interesting place for you to take a look at, or smaller businesses where you can, take on a little bit bigger responsibility. So hopefully that kind of, fills in. If you're looking for specific, cybersecurity skills, there's a ton of training that's out there from different institutions, like, not only just the universities, but SANS Institute, tons of web training, tons of vendor training, and it's all free. And so I would say learn the essentials, right? So if you wanted to go into cybersecurity, and being comfortable with what the components are in the security stack will be really important, right? If you want to go apply to a cybersecurity company and they, talk to you and you're like, oh, I don't know what a firewall is, or I don't know what a SIM is, or I don't know. I mean, you're probably not going to get very far, because they're going to want to go much deeper than that to even give you a shot. So if you don't know, there's tons of information out there. There's also a place, in addition to YouTube, there's a place called Bright Talk, which you can go into, and you can, oh my gosh, it's like the Google for video. It's the, you can go in and find anything about anything. And I would also say, do your research, because the thing that drives me nuts is when somebody comes in and wants to apply, and they're like, what do you guys do? I'm like, well, why are you here? Like, if you don't know what we do and who our competitors are, and at least have spent some time going through the website, you probably won't stand out to me. So I would definitely say, do your research, understand the company, understand how they position the company, understand who the competitors are. I mean, you can all put in like Attivo versus, and you're going to see who our competitors are just in Google search. So do some basic homework that shows me that you are ready to invest your career, your life in the company for a while. And if you don't even know what we do, it seems like it's a mismatch in my mind. So I would definitely encourage that. So
we do have a few more questions from our audience. So with regard to the privilege escalation and stuff, what happens when the attacker exposes themselves when they're duped inside of the network?
Yeah. So a lot of times, and the cool part of deception is they don't know they're duped right away. And so there's actually technology in the deception platforms that will keep the attacker engaged. And so what you're going to look for is the gathering as much threat intelligence or adversary intelligence that you can about how that attacker is attacking your company. And there's a whole bunch of threat intelligence databases that are out there, and they're trying to encourage the communities, get another job opportunity. There's a lot of kind of standards and information sharing boards that are out there with the information sharing associations, and they have them for all different industries. And also like AHA for the American Hospital Association, others. There's just these groups that you can go to if you think this is kind of cool. But they're all kind of what happened and at a general level. And you can get some things so you can patch your firewalls and other things. But if you really want to dig into how that attacker is attacking your company, you put them into a deception sandbox and they don't even realize. So now they're showing how they're trying to move laterally, how they're trying to escalate their privileges, what they're trying to go after, and you can collect a lot of that information. Now, what do they do when they figure out that they've been duped? Well, typically they don't know what gave them up. They just know that all of a sudden the way they were getting in before has been cleaned up and they can't go back in that way. If you gathered enough information, then you can go shut down all of those routes, because they may have put those backdoors in many different places in the network, depending upon how long they've been in there. So the more you can shut those down, the less likely they can come back in. So your chances of them stopping, are pretty decent. Going away or potential. I mean, I won't say if it's a very motivated attacker, they're going to go away just because one door shuts, they'll go look for another one. Some people are worried about retaliation. Not so much, I don't think, because you're not doing something which is called hacking back. So if I sent and let's say you were stealing files and I embedded malware in there that would detonate when opened on your side, that's considered hacking back. And the problem with that is that you could accidentally end up hacking back the wrong company, right? And now you become the hacker. And so there's a lot of reasons you don't want to do it ethically, in addition to that it's illegal, and so you don't want to go to jail for things like that. So the best thing though is you get them, you stop them, you at least slow them down, you patch up the holes so that they can't come back in. And usually, I mean, I can't even think of an instance where the attacker came back with more vengeance and fury because they engaged with deception, because they'll tell you, I don't think any of them really knew until, like, for example, they have something called red teaming. And when there are set people that are designed to attack the network, they're trying to look for the holes and if they can penetrate. And in those cases, you do tell them afterwards, because they'll be like, you guys, your security is so sloppy. We were in and they're like, yeah, no, not really sloppy. Here's every move you took. And you have a whole log and it's like, yeah, we tracked you along the whole way. And, most of them will shut them off after a period of time because you don't want to waste your pen tester's time, in a deception sandbox. But it is kind of fun to be able to play back and go, yeah, you thought you made it through, but you didn't. And that's good for compliance and other things to show resiliency. A lot of insurance companies are getting kind of like not so happy about paying out all these ransomware payouts. So, also maybe something else to show additional resiliency in that. So I do see there are some other things.
We do have a few other questions. Actually, there's a lot of questions and I'm not sure if we'll get there in if we'll go through all them time, but let's try. You were talking about doing your research before you apply to a job and find a little bit more about the company that you're applying to. So, excuse me. in an interview with a recruiter or with the HR, how do you demonstrate your knowledge about the company before they start explaining what the company does?
Well, it depends on the interview style is. So there could be a person that goes, like, I might ask, what do you know about the company? In which case you have a chance to just openly say, well, I understand that, Attivo's in the cyber deception space. You guys are different because you look at the threats inside the network versus outside. And I saw that you could go to the press release section of the website, and I see you recently announced something on credential protection. That's pretty cool. And then I would probably turn, because I love candidate questions. Any interview that I do, and I go, do you have any questions for me? And they go, no, I'm all set. It's like, no, you always should have a question for the people that you're interviewing with, because this is your chance to get to know the company too. So on something like that, I might pivot and I might say, that seems like a pretty important announcement. How does that strategically fit into where the company's going? And I'll go, wow, that's a really smart question. And the questions are very generic. You don't even have to know a whole lot about the company. It's like, what's the company's vision? What's the strategy? Is the company achieving its goals? Why or why not? What's the biggest threat to the company's success? Again, doesn't matter what my company or industry, I'm just trying to figure out, is this a viable company? Are they unique? Are they differentiated? What do they do to drive the company culture? How does the company celebrate success? I mean, you want to know, is this a sweatshop or is this a good place to work? How's the company dealt with keeping morale up in a distributed, environment that we are in today? You think the company will ever go back to having everybody in the office? I mean, these are all smart questions. I'll be like, all right, this person's really thought this through. In addition to asking the questions about the job itself, right? That just gets you by the company level. But when you get in the job, it's like, if you looked at my job, what would I be doing throughout the day? Like, give me an idea of the kind of work that I would be doing. And when you listen to that, you have to listen and go, oh, that's the most worst job I'd ever worked in my life, or that sounds like a ton of fun. And once I've mastered how I would do that, what's my next kind of opportunity, right? And not seeming like you wouldn't be happy in the job that they're hiring you for, because you don't want to kind of overplay that, but you want to show you've got, ambition to expand your value to the company. And so, as I progress my career and my capabilities and I master that, what else could I do to learn and contribute more to the company? I mean, again, these are smart questions that the people are going to go, you really care, like, about where you're going and what you can do. And that will make you stand out.
Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. So I will wrap up the Q&A with one last question for you, Carolyn. What advice would you give to all the people that are watching this session right now?
Yeah. So I guess I'd say master your own brand too. Right? And it fits to some of the questions that are in the Q&A. So I think I can kind of wrap that all up in together. Is if you want to stand out, think about why you should stand out. So your own personal brand may be how you communicate on social media. Do you post blogs on a frequent basis and make yourself a subject matter expert? And you don't always have to be the expert. You could go out and interview people too, and just write about it. That kind of shows that again, you care about the industry, that you're a thought leader in the industry. You might also be surprised. You can write bylines for different publications and you can volunteer to speak. I would definitely encourage to get out there and speaking. And again, even if you don't know, you could go to kind of like the team did here with me today, going, hey, could you come speak? And now they're going to get lift from, people that I might talk to that said, hey, I've been, just did this for this group, do you want to listen to the video, or I'll share that I did it. And it again, gets your brand out there and associated with different things. So be visible, volunteer to speak, volunteer to do things, be parts of different associations. Those things will all help you stand out. Just like when you applied for college, they didn't want to just see your good grades. They wanted to see what else you did to contribute and stand out. So keep that thread going. And I think that will help you with the interview process and standing out, and network like crazy, get to know people, and and don't be afraid to to reach out. It's the way that when you do need to talk to them about something, that it's not the first time they've heard from you in 10 years, right? It's something that they're like, oh yeah, this person's kept in touch, maybe shared an article or a story or something with me, and now they're reaching out going, hey, I noticed you're connected to so and so, could you make an introduction for me? And if I was the person being asked, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it, because I'm like, oh, I kind of know this person, I've engaged with them a little bit, I can say something about them, versus getting the referral that's like, I don't really know this person, but they asked me to make a connection, so here they are. Instead, I can kind of wrap a little color around it, or help me wrap the color around it, of going, okay, well, I'd like this person to understand this about me, could you make an introduction and include these things? And I'm willing to do it because you've laid it out for me. So those are just some of the things you can do to be visible, stay connected, and hopefully get to that next job or position or activity that you want to be participating in.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really. I'm going to launch a really quick poll to assess attendance and other stuff while Janessa wraps up the session. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
All right, thank you. It was great being here.
Yep, so go ahead and fill out that poll that Conti just launched on your screen, and it launched on my screen too. So please follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where this podcast will be uploaded. And check out our website at cyber.org for more information and our upcoming information for our conversations. And thank you for joining us today, Carolyn. We really appreciate you having you here tonight, and have a great night.